Dog.
And we are live with the MMA Vivisection, focused on Bellator 145 Vengeance. I am joined by Victor Rodriguez and Eddie Mercado of Bloody Elbow. This is Zane Simon, also of Bloody Elbow. And we are here to talk. We were here to talk fight odds, but the odds aren't posted yet because slowly but surely bookies are getting wise to the mess that is MMA betting and making a smaller window in which to gamble in case they set the odds poorly on these fights, so we get fewer odds further out. Bellator doesn't have any yet, but we're here to at least talk analysis and fight picks for this Vengeance card, which is, at least as has been typical for the recent Bellator cards, a pretty solid main card. Like there are no bad fights on the main card, and there are a couple of things of interest on the prelims and all that. And as always, I'm here with Eddie Mercado, Vic Rodriguez. Guys, thanks for joining me. Eddie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be here. Find me on Twitter at the Eddie Mercado. Give us a like on the YouTube. That's the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Read Bloody Elbow. Special shout out to Lynx Academy of Martial Arts here in Virginia Beach, Gracie Certified Training Center. They also specialize in Muay Thai kickboxing. So if you're in the area in the 757, go check them out. Bunch of great guys. Other than that, I'm pretty stoked on this card. A lot of great fights, couple title fights. So yeah, I'm in a good mood.
Awesome. And fans, if you really want to get to know Eddie well, send him all your Batman-inspired media and merchandise. He's a
I
big
was Batman for
fan.
Halloween.
Wow.
Were you?
Dead Batman. No, I'm joking.
Oh,
I'm joking.
okay. I was gonna say.
I wouldn't give him the revenue.
That's some deep hatred right there.
I know.
Just like, it's almost,
I was impressed by your potential for self-loathing if you'd
it,
gone.
it borders on poetic. I mean, that's pretty amazing shit right there. That's great.
Vic, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and we are looking forward to a pretty solid main card. I don't think there's a single fight here that could seem boring at all. So yeah, just we're looking forward to cutting into the meat and potatoes we got here at the top. This is going to be. Yeah, I'm done talking. Is that what happened? Okay.
That
You
dial-up
broke up.
internet will get you every time.
Wow, really? See? That's amazing. I didn't even realize that. I'm sorry. All
Yeah,
right,
you're
so
right.
yeah, there you go. This is what happens on the MMA Vivisection. Guys we found in front of Home Depot edition. This is the kind of thing you can expect. This is what's going to happen. My internet is going to roll the dice and whatever because I miss FiOS. It is what
Well,
it is.
at the end of all this, I got like 50 pallets I need you guys to move around, and then we'll call it a day. So.
Oh boy, at least it's not trimming branches.
There you go.
Hey.
All right. So first of all, let's just take a quick breeze through the undercard, talk about some fights you guys are each interested in. Eddie, anything in particular on the undercard you're looking out for?
Yeah, there's a couple guys that are finishers, which I'm really high on. I love when guys just go out and finish. Steve Mann being one of them. He has 8 submissions, 2 KOs, 10 victories, and he has 3 losses, 2 KOs, and 1 submission. So he's never seen a decision. You got to admire that. Someone who's just willing to lay it all on the line. So I'm excited to see that. He's fighting Hugh Pulley, hometown guy. They're both actually hometown guys. Pulley's got 2 KOs. So that could be interesting. And also, we have Adam Sella versus Chell Irwin Davis. Sella's also a finisher, 6-4, 3 KOs, 3 submissions, pretty well rounded. I believe he was on The Ultimate Fighter. So, yeah, I'm excited. I don't think those fights will go the distance if history has anything to say about it.
Yeah, I believe Sella is the highlight of, or was the highlight of Uriah Hall's career before he busted up Gegard Mousasi.
No. He will always be the highlight of that. He'll
No,
always be part of the highlight reel.
Gegard Mousasi is the, that's some real
Yeah.
career shit.
Yeah, but it wasn't as perhaps laser perfect, precise as it was on Cella. But still, hey, it doesn't. I don't think it represents Cella as well as it should as a fighter. It just means that was a moment in that situation.
It's just what we know him from.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
He is. He is the guy who got kicked into the upper atmosphere by Uriah Hall. Now, Vic, what do you any fights in particular on this undercard that you're looking out for?
Yes, and just the brief, almost obligatory disclaimer. Look, just because we're not talking about you on the undercard doesn't mean you're not a good fighter. Okay, it doesn't mean we don't like you. It's just the fact that these are fights that perhaps may have a bit more consequence right now, and hey, we might be talking about you soon enough later on. One thing of note about this card is that it seems to be following in not so much the World Series of Fighting model of co-opting local promotions or regional shows, but there are a lot of Shamrock FC veterans and guys that they've either have a lot of opponents in common because they're in that same region or something along those lines. As far as this card goes, I think one of the sleepers might be Scott Edling versus Garrett Mueller, mostly due to the fact that I don't think that I've seen a matchup between two fighters that have had this much seasoning as amateurs facing off as professionals. Edling has had 15 amateur fights, 4 of those have ended in submissions, and he's currently 3-0 as a professional. All of those have been submissions as well, 2 triangle chokes and a rear naked. Very good submission defense, very composed, very decent with his chain wrestling, although he doesn't have too much in the way of stand-up. Garrett Mueller's 15-4 as an amateur and 2-0 as a professional. His last bout was for Bellator. It was a submission win. He's got, he seems to have that sort of Matt Riddle striking. He throws punches for the sake of throwing them, and a lot of times he just ends up jabbing air. It's just the same 1-2, 1-2, and he will get into sloppy dogfights. But that's mostly because he, much like Edling, is a guy who utilizes his striking to close the distance and get to the real meat of things, which is his wrestling. So we very well might see a very interesting dogfight that will be, just nose to nose, a lot of wrestling and some pretty entertaining grappling. So that has a degree of promise. And big expectations for Alex Huddleston versus Augusto Sakai. Sakai, who's only 24, but he looks like he's, what does he look like? He looks like he's about 38. He's got that sort of mechanic body. He doesn't. His conditioning is a bit questionable, but he's undefeated. He's 2-0 in Bellator. His positional jiu-jitsu is not very great in terms of defense, but he seems to work with that. And he's fighting Alex Huddleston, who is, I believe, one of Bobby Lashley's training partners at ATT Colorado. Very, very good jiu-jitsu. He's got some instructionals as well online. 6-1 as a professional currently, and he hits super, super hard. So that looks like a very, very likely to deliver fight right there.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one as well. I love heavyweight fights, and especially this one. Huddleston, I think, has some potential. He fought Javi Ayala in his last fight, and absolutely put the stamp on him. He dropped him with a jab. That's serious power. This dude, he's 6'7" and light on his feet, like super coordinated. You don't really see that from 6'7" guys. And yeah, I like him. I think he's definitely has some potential. The guy he's fighting, Augusto Sakai, I believe he was a aquarium store worker or something like that, turned MMA fighter. But he's He's kind of sloppy sometimes. I think his best weapon are his knees. He's got a really mean tie clinch, and he's not afraid to throw his knees, even if he's going to get taken down. And like Vic was saying about his positional jiu-jitsu isn't the greatest. He will let guys get back up, whereas Huddleston won't. Huddleston has the capability to hold you down. So I'm interested in how this will play out. I would have to say Huddleston's going to take the win here. He might even finish Sakai. Maybe based off cardio alone. Definitely Sakai has shown some fatigue in fights, but he's also shown the ability to come back in fights. So it'll be interesting.
Sorry, Vic, I didn't hear your pick. Did you have a pick for that one?
I don't think I made a pick. I'd have to go with Huddleston here, mostly because of a better utilization of range and better movement. And also, I really would have to give him the advantage on the ground based on what I've seen from Sakai.
Yeah,
although Sakai has two crowds. I don't know if the clinch might be a factor here or not, but I certainly got to give this to Huddleston. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're just breaking up, so I'm having issues. I don't know if it's on your end or my end. But anyway, I think one thing I would say, too, about this fight, from what I've seen of Sakai, is that he kind of strikes me as the kind of heavyweight who's getting in shape in his career, which, it's kind of a good and a bad thing. On the bad side, he's getting in shape while fighting. That's never like ideal. You don't want to be the guy out there who's like, you know, just doesn't look like he's hit the gym that often. But on the good side, it does mean for some of these guys, they can make huge leaps from fight to fight if they actually do start to hit those athletic peaks where they actually are dropping their pounds and getting in good shape, getting their cardio. I don't know, like he could, especially being undefeated early and having some success in Bellator, and if he's getting more money to train and stuff like that, I could see him someday turning the corner just out of nowhere and not being like an amazing force, but being better than we might otherwise expect.
He better start doing hill sprints. He's been looking the same for the last 2 years. I don't know what, I mean, things have been working out, but there's only so you can only rely on your physical talents or attributes for so long.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But on that note, let's move on to the main card. Those I think we covered everything on the prelims and note, and talk about first bout up, main card opener, Emmanuel Sanchez, Justin Lawrence. Vic, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Well, this is a very appropriate opening fight, I guess, for this particular card. Very exciting talents and a very perhaps underappreciated talent in Justin Lawrence, and a guy not too many people know in Emmanuel Sanchez. Sanchez is currently 3-0 as an amateur and 11-2 as a pro, 5 submissions on his record and a knockout. He trains out of Rufus Sport. His style may not be totally aesthetically pleasing, but he does a lot of things very well. His striking is a bit basic, but it's clean. His offensive wrestling isn't as good as his defensive wrestling. He is able to get out of certain situations and scrambles effectively and sort of pick and choose his shots. His in and out movement side to side, he does pretty well with that. He's going to be taking on a very different breed of athlete, though, because Justin Lawrence is a guy who's training out of Power MMA out in Arizona. He's currently 8-2 as a professional. All of his fights as a pro. He did have losses in the UFC to Daniel Pineda and Max Holloway, but he did have some wins in the UFC. He did, I guess he did relatively well in the Ultimate Fighter, but I just think he's got so much more seasoning and better fighter IQ, so I'm certainly favoring him in this bout. Sanchez doesn't have as many avenues to victory here unless he's able to really work submissions well off his back. I think that would be his best bet in this bout.
Vic, or not Vic, Eddie.
We look alike. We all look the same.
That's right. Other guy, Eddie. What are your thoughts? You think that you giving Emmanuel Sanchez any chance here?
So Vic, you're picking Lawrence on this one?
I am, yes.
Okay. I think this is a very close match. A little bit hard for me to predict this one. You got Lawrence, who kind of has that karate background, real heavy on the front leg, heavy hands. I mean, he can be flashy when he wants to be. Very smart, like Vic was saying. His FIQ is rather high.
There it is.
If he, I've seen him sink in a rear naked choke, realize he didn't have it, move to the dominant position over submission. I love to see that out of guys. His cardio is pretty good as well. He's been 5 rounds before. So Lawrence can definitely hold his own for the duration of a fight. And he was the RFA champion also, so he's got that kind of prowess to him. And he can get back to his feet, which I always love to see. On the other hand, you got Emmanuel Sanchez, Rufus Sport guy. Real tight kickboxing, real sound, doesn't make many mistakes in his kickboxing. Like Vic was saying, basic combos, but they're effective, and he will stalk you and come at you and walk you down. Like he tried that against Pat Curran, although Curran is amazing with his counters, so that didn't really work out for him. But I feel like Sanchez has the edge on the ground here. I mean, he has a really active guard, and he's real crafty, although sometimes he will kind of take some risks that put him in harm's way, so to speak, like diving on a back or flying triangles. Or I saw him, he got a dude in a triangle and then just started double hammer fisting his head instead of locking up the triangle. So you got to question his FIQ as far as that goes. I'm not sure that would cost him in this fight, but I understand he takes those risks because his ground game is good enough to where he can get out of trouble. Like he will show his back, let you take his back, and then spin on top of you. I mean, I can't recall a single person that was able just to hold him down. Even Karan, he was able to get back to his feet, even if he was held down for a while. So I think the edge in the ground goes to Sanchez, and I think as far as stand-up goes, the venom definitely goes to Lawrence here. Sanchez will have some decent volume, Black's power, but I think they might nullify each other on the feet, and I think it's going to come down to the better grappler. So I'm going to edge this one out to Emmanuel Sanchez.
I think that sounds reasonable. I would say I do expect Lawrence to be the favorite in the odds.
Slight favorite. I mean,
You think he's only going to be slight? I mean, he's got all the name value. I expect him to be a pretty. I don't expect many people to be betting on Sanchez.
well, Sanchez has fought better competition. I mean, I think Sanchez should be really close. I think this line should be extremely close, and if it's not, there's an issue.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, yeah, sure, Pat Curran and Luis Gonzalez, who he lost to, and he did beat Villalobos and Henry Corrales as well. But you got Justin Lawrence, who fought Max Holloway, and oh god, this other
Yeah, but
guy.
he got waxed. And Pineda.
True, but I mean, are those guys really? I don't know. I'm not sure if those guys are. Those losses are probably better than some of Sanchez's. I don't know. He lost to better opposition than what Sanchez beat, I guess is my point. I don't know.
It's going to be close for sure. It's going to be close for sure.
I don't doubt that. I agree that seems this fight may be a lot closer than some people realize. I certainly would give you that, but I don't know about it being a slight favorite type thing.
I don't see Lawrence finishing him on the feet. If Curran didn't finish him on the feet, I don't think Lawrence is going to finish him on the feet. And
but, I don't know. Curran is kind of like a seriously, willingly inactive striker these days.
Yeah, but I mean, he definitely was countering. Curran was putting it on him. He definitely was passive at times in that fight and a bit of a spectator, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Lawrence can also be a bit passive sometimes, like real methodical and reacting on the other guy. And Sanchez is coming straight at you. Like, he's coming forward. He don't care who you are. So I think Sanchez might eke a decision out just off of the pressure and willingness to exchange on the ground.
I would say from what I've seen of Lawrence over his career, he's improving, and he's improving in a way that we should be excited about and interested about because he is a very good athlete. But like especially against somebody like Sanchez, like there's no reason to think that Lawrence can't lose. He is the kind of fighter who has shown the ability to just kind of give up a fight in an instant. And but yeah, I think I expect him to be probably like a minus 200 or 300 favorite in this fight coming in. I don't know if he deserves that, but I think all the name value and interest is on his side. All right. Next up, we got Michael Chandler, Dave Rickles, Eddie, I believe, is this your
Yes, sir. It is my turn.
No, it's Vic's.
No, it's my. Vic went first last time.
Okay, Eddie, it is yours.
Come on, Zane. You knew.
You guys got to start wearing name tags.
We should.
I'm just not going to wear a shirt anymore. How about that?
Yeah, you probably, if someone's got to go shirtless, it should probably be you, because my days of taking my shirt off on the internet for strangers for free, those days are over. So
it's all about the money now. PayPal accounts.
Right. Lucrative, son. What it is.
All right, Eddie. Chandler, Rickles.
Yeah, I'm excited about these guys. Two guys, really athletic. Chandler, former champion, Division I All-American wrestler. Definitely has heavy hands. He throws bombs. Rickles also has heavy hands. They fought one time before that didn't turn out so well for Rickles. He got starched in 44 seconds, which was pretty brutal. But that was then, and this is now. Chandler's been he kind of had a rough little patch there, dropping three back-to-back losses. He's almost the Frankie Edgar of Bellator in the sense that he's on the wrong end of tough decisions. You know, I mean, an argument can be made that he beat Will Brooks in their first fight. Tough loss against Eddie Alvarez in their fight. I mean, you know, if he had won those fights, would anything have gone different? I don't know. But I know something really weird went on when he fought Will Brooks again. And I don't know what happened with him, but he kind of just started putting his hands up and walking away like he was disoriented. And it kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I'm not really sure what happened, but that, you know, that's a scary moment when you see that happen to a fighter and not without seeing what actually happened to him. So who knows what's going on with him? He's got a lot of miles on him, does Chandler? A lot of fight miles. Uh, he's kind of been losing a step. He's been telegraphing his takedowns lately, which, you know, that can really get you into trouble. But he still has the venom. He still, you know, he still has that killer instinct. He still has that drive, as we saw in his last fight. He screwed up Derek Campos. He absolutely mauled that dude. In typical Chandler fashion. You know, he dropped him, pounced on him, submitted him. I think he submitted him, didn't he? Yeah, rear naked choke.
Yes.
Chandler's rear naked choke is phenomenal. I love it's so aggressive the way he just goes for it. David Rickles, man, I'm a big fan. I like his style, his energy. He the caveman. I think he came to the ring with a dinosaur once. But in his last fight, he fought John Alessio, and you know, he was doing really well. Like, he hurt Alessio and had him on the ropes and just made a critical error of kneeing the head of a downed opponent. And that, you know, that contest was ruled an NC no contest. And it makes me wonder about his FIQ. You know, it's like in that moment.
Wait a minute. You just said FIQ again, and you caught me off the mark. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Now we can resolve. Yeah, there we go. All right, good. We can continue.
So, you really got to question a fighter when he's not thinking. Like, he wasn't thinking in that moment. He was just reacting. It was his instinct. He was just going in for the kill without, you know, thinking about what am I doing in this exact moment. So those kind of lapses in judgment can really haunt a fighter. There's definitely still holes in Rickles' stand-up game. But what he has been doing well lately that I like is leg kicks. He's been really kicking the leg, and Chandler's not really one to check leg kicks. You know, Chandler's kind of heavy on that front leg. So I'm real interested in how this plays out. I know Rickles struggles with venomous strikers. Chandler is definitely a venomous striker. So I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. I would think the odds have Chandler a heavy favorite, but I would not be surprised if Rickles got the upset here. However, I'm not picking Rickles. I'm picking Michael Chandler. I think he still has what it takes to I think he's a certain caliber that Rickles is not. So I'm going to pick Michael Chandler. I don't see why he wouldn't get another finish over him.
Vic?
All right, a couple of notes here. First off, Michael Chandler, who interestingly enough fairly recently left Alliance in San Diego to go to Power MMA in Arizona. I'm not sure how that will affect him. Maybe he can return to what people have expected from him, being such a gifted wrestler, such a talented athlete as well, to maybe utilize his wrestling in a better way, adapt it better in his MMA style. Currently 13-3, all of his fights as a professional, 3 very, very tough losses. A note on that fight against Will Brooks, the second fight, I think it was a right hand that Will Brooks landed coming. He was getting up off the ground. And Chandler, I'm a little worried about him now. I don't know how much head trauma he's sustained in sparring, but those wars with Alvarez probably took some years off his life, off his not just his fight life. And that fight against Will Brooks, he forgot he was actually in a fight. He put his hands up, he looked around, he didn't even realize that the ref was a ref. And that ended up getting called off. So that's what happened in that bout. Now, he rebounded very nicely against Derek Campos, which was an expected result. You know, as Campos, as good as he is, Chandler is a world-class fighter. He really is one of those guys that can probably hang with any lightweight in the world. But I am a little worried about how he's going to recover from all this, as it's an ongoing process. He has beaten some of the very best guys that Bellator has had. You know, he beat Rick Hahn, he beat Eddie Alvarez, he beat Patricky Pitbull, Marcin Held. His fight IQ is questionable, though. I gotta wonder where he's at with that and some of the decisions that he makes, and maybe some of the changes in the camp might help as a result of that. His conditioning is superb. His boxing has evolved and is more than just your basic wrestle boxer fare, but he is too reliant on his physical attributes, and I worry that that's going to get him into trouble. Now he's going to be fighting a guy who he's fought and beat before, in David Rickles, who's 8-1 as an amateur and 16-3 as a pro. That last bout, massive brain fart at the end. He was super styling on Alessio, and he got careless. He made that mistake. It was a real bummer too, because he was doing it in his home state. You know, I mean, he was like in front of his home crowd, and you know, to have a fight thrown away like that is pretty messed up. But you know, he's going to have an opportunity here to redeem himself, and he's got a very, very tough uphill climb. You got a guy whose movement is somewhat jerky. You know, his leg kick defense is also questionable, more so I'd say than Chandler's. He can slow down pretty quickly in some of these bouts, and his submission defense is pretty good. But you know, I don't think he's. I think he's going to be struggling to be in positions that are not keeping him at a disadvantage against someone who's so positionally sound as Michael Chandler. And not only that, a guy who's got so much power enough to put him away. I certainly don't think this is. I don't think Rickles is going to get knocked out, you know, in the opening minute or anything of that sort. But I do have to really. This is another bout that should be a lot closer than the odds may suggest that when they eventually come out. I'm certainly favoring Chandler, but I'm a little shaky on this. I'm a little worried because I really do think Rickles might be able to catch him in some sort of submission at some point. But that seems like his only real avenue to victory. I think if it goes to a decision, Chandler's going to run away with this bout.
Yeah, I will say I'm getting some heavy feedback there from somebody. Anyway, I would say that I'm pretty. I don't know, I'm happy to see that Chandler has switch camps. I think that was a good move, especially with how badly he seemed to be stagnating in his last three bouts. It just seemed like he was going into the same fights with the same approach and getting beat by people who were like, "Hey, I've already fought you. I've already seen you. I know your approach, and I'm going to change it up and do something different." And for him, it's just like, "Well, this worked well enough last time, so I'll just come back right back with it." And that's generally, I mean, I'm not a firm believer that fighters change radically every time out, but I do think that, especially if you're facing the same people again, you do have to be like, you have to prepare for that.
We might be losing Zane here.
Yeah, I think Zane's internet just took a
Well, while
massive
he's gone,
shit.
a little fun fact:
Mm-hmm.
Michael Chandler has never lost a 3-round fight.
That's
And
an interesting bout.
interesting because Chandler's a fast starter. Like he will win the first 2 rounds. You know, we saw that against Will Brooks. So,
Yeah, it served him well in the Alvarez fights too that he was able to get that advantage early.
right.
I don't know if you heard us, Zane. We were talking about exclusive Hispanic stuff and how much, you know, we're just talking about weird white people stuff behind your back while your internet took a massive dump. So we kind of missed like the last 20 seconds of that.
Weird, because I was just talking, and
Oh, by the way, Zane, I love your sweater.
Oh, thank you. Anyway,
I told you it was a great sweater. Yeah.
I was saying, if I'm still on, that I'm glad to see Chandler switch camps. I think that'll do well for him. I think that this, you know, he seems like he was stagnating pretty badly, and that Rickles is, or that he's, you know, that's a good move for him. I expect him to look better because of it. But I do know that, especially after that loss to Patricky Freire, that Rickles has totally changed his camps and his training and his approach to the fight and all that. And, you know, he's in much better shape than he's.
Might be losing Zane again.
Than coming in out of shape and all that. So, I do think there's a much. I would be surprised if Rickles had a really poor fight. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to catch Chandler with something and hurt him. But yeah, I think it makes sense that all the odds would be in Chandler's favor.
Yeah, it's hard to not favor Chandler in a 3-round fight. He's just, so a million miles an hour right out of the gate that he can easily take 2 rounds before the other guy knows what happened. So,
Yeah, and Rickles. I mean, it's just I even talked to him about this a little recently. That he, that what happened with Alessio. Like, yeah, that was that was a major mistake and his most the most recent, but it's something that he's constantly grappling with, which is that his body just kind of runs ahead of his brain.
Mm.
That he sees an opportunity, he takes the opportunity, and then he is like, oh shit, that was not what I needed to do right in that moment. And I mean that it's kind of the Melvin Guillard syndrome, and at some point, like, that puts a firm cap on you.
Mm. The best thing is about picking Melvin for the name of that condition is there's no perfect representative of that. You've got such a great fighter, but you just in that moment, just you can't catch yourself. It's a problem.
Yeah. All right. So next up, Bobby Lashley, James Thompson. Vic, your thoughts?
Oh boy, here we go with a rematch from a bout that took place in Super Fight League, one of Zane Simon's favorite promotions
Hey, it's
of all
everybody's favorite
time.
promotion. Don't pin that on me.
I think only the intro is everyone's favorite. That I don't think anyone really gives two shits about SFL anymore. But yeah,
No, it
no,
was glorious while it lasted. Come on.
I guess yeah. Hey, guillotine chokes everywhere for everyone. Um, Bobby Lashley, 13-2. All of his fights as a professional, former professional wrestler, former Armed Forces Wrestling champion, 3-0 in Bellator. I just want to get this part right out of the way. James Thompson has lost to far and away much, much better competition than anyone Bobby Lashley has faced and anyone Bobby Lashley has beaten. Um, he's had, unfortunately, a string of really terrible losses, but that was when he was far more disorganized in his career. Now that he's got a proper actual training regimen, now that he's able to learn a lot more and absorb a lot more. He's kind of found himself on a better path as a fighter as of late. He's currently 20-14, but don't let that record fool you either. He's one of those guys who his last win was last year against Eric Prindle back in June. But he's beaten guys Don Fry, which doesn't count for much when the guy was in his 40s, Dan Severn, who was probably in his 50s, and referee Mark Goddard, who he beat twice, once by submission and knockout, believe it or not. But he's got losses to guys like Kaz Fujita, Rob Broughton, Alex Emelianenko, Butterbean, Neil Grove, Brett Rogers, Kimbo Slice, Overeem. He's got 5 knockout losses in his career, and this was all during this crazy hectic time where his fight camps were probably a week or so, or he had short back-to-back bouts. He's really got himself together. He's really learned how to utilize his range a little more. He rushes in sometimes, but he's just a massive guy who's going to be a lot harder to take down. Bobby Lashley, for all his wrestling credentials, I just don't really see him having his way with Thompson. I think he's going to end up being somewhat bullied. I think Lashley's cardio is going to be questionable to the point where it's going to be spent, and Thompson's going to keep on going. He's going to hurt him. So it's really a sad state of affairs here. I do expect a crazy, sloppy, and exciting heavyweight bout, but I really got to favor James Thompson heavy on this one.
Eddie, your thoughts?
I couldn't disagree any less. I think
Any less?
Any
So
less?
you're in full agreement?
no, I disagree. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. We're
Well,
not.
what the fuck was that? Wait, you just said.
Oh wait, no. Yes, couldn't
Yeah,
disagree.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
You couldn't disagree more.
Remainder 3, divide by 2. Okay, fight
Yeah.
you. No.
Carry the one. Yes, like you.
All right, so Thompson. Well, first of all, they fought once, and that was an ugly fight, real grueling match. I'm surprised they both even were able to finish that without completely passing out. So Thompson, I gotta say, probably one of my top 10 fights was when he fought Alexander Emelianenko. And I mean, it was so great. You got Thompson snarling foaming at the mouth, just ready to attack, and Emelianenko was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, dude. Another day at the office. Thompson comes blazing out, and Emelianenko steps to the side and clocks him, and put him away. One of my favorite fights of all time. It's just such polar opposite figures going at it. But that was a long time ago. So Thompson, he's 20-14. Those 14 losses, 11 were knockouts or TKOs.
Oh,
So, he's taken a beating. He's taken a lot of punches to the head over the years, and that matters. That adds up. And Lashley definitely has less miles as as far as fight age goes, which definitely favors Lashley. Thompson, he had a weird gap. He had a 2-year gap after their first fight. Does anyone know why? What that
uh,
2-year layoff was?
I understand he was battling injuries, and I think he ended up with mono at some point. And I don't know if that was he had some problems that he was dealing with on that end.
Mm, okay. Well, Thompson, he's got really good dirty boxing. He has damn good takedown defense. He's got uh, he's got holes in his stand-up though, to where he gets tagged quite frequently. Even if he might not get knocked out, he definitely gets rocked, and he's definitely hittable. Uh, Lashley, they're strangely similar in their styles. They're both going to try to clinch each other, hold each other against the cage. But I think the difference between the last time they fought is Lashley's gotten better. I think that's pretty much the basic bottom line here is Lashley has improved since their last fight, and Thompson, I can't say has. And it's not like Lashley has been fighting anyone worth a damn. No disrespect to any of the people he's fought, but he hasn't been fighting world beaters at all. He's been can crushing essentially. So it might come down to cardio, but I don't know. I think Lashley is just a fresher fighter. He's got the momentum going. You know, I don't think Thompson is gonna do anything different from their last fight. I mean, it's going to be pretty much identical, I think. I think it's going to be the same exact fight, except Lashley is a little smarter now. He's learned a couple more techniques. I think he can get off the cage now when Thompson does hold him there. I think he knows when to go for takedowns and when not to. And I think he's smart enough to not throw, 4-punch combos. He might pick his shots better. He's been really good about his jab lately. So I think Lashley's improved stand-up will save him in the cardio department. And I see Lashley outlasting Thompson in this one. So I'm going to go Bobby Lashley. And I can see Bobby Lashley being the favorite here as well.
I'm sorry, but I should mention just one thing. You mentioned Lashley being a guy who's had less miles as a fighter. Let's not discount the toll that professional wrestling had on his body, because it's possible that layoff that he had might have been accumulation of the things that he had from pro wrestling and MMA. So just kind of putting that out there as a thought.
For sure. I think that's credible. That's definitely credible. But he
Yeah,
wasn't knocked out.
I would say though that it does seem like I don't know, fight miles are the mileage fighters put on their body. It's a very particular kind of mileage.
Mhm.
Even talk you see kickboxers come over who've had a long kickboxing career, and they still their MMA career still seems to be more or less the same in terms of length and durability and peak and all that.
Hmm.
I
So
like Zane's
while
sweater. It's nice.
yeah,
The
yeah,
ugly
it's pretty
Christmas
cool.
sweater has started early for him, I see.
No, I
And
like the
Rock's blown knees from pro wrestling. Um, then that's a major problem. But I wouldn't say necessarily that I've seen a lot of guys, even guys who come over and switch sports, who just seem like they are shot because of their other sport. Weirdly, I don't know. That's just food for thought. Um, on the other side of that, I would also say that I gotta favor Lashley just a bit. It seems like things are actually starting to click for him in a serious way. I mean, I don't think he'll ever be more than a wall install, like takedown to ground and pound fighter. But it seems like he's figured out how to be good at that. And I don't know. I it's hard to have faith for me in somebody who has been as bad as James Thompson has been. because at his worst, James Thompson was like he was the guy that you would pick Bob Sapp to beat. You know, even though I believe, yeah, he's beat Bob Sapp. He's still the guy. Like, if he had fought Bob Sapp in like 2008 or 2009, I would be like, yeah, I could think Bob Sapp might win that fight. And man, that's a rough place to come back from. He is kind of fucking weird heavyweight is, and that you should probably never bet or come close to betting on this fight if you can possibly help it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I don't even like betting on heavyweights. Not that I bet, but I wouldn't bet on heavyweights. Period. They're just anything can happen in a heavyweight. They're
No,
just
yeah.
damn big.
It's a weird. It's a black hole of a division. Like it is. In Ren and Stimpy when they go to go through the black hole and they're in the like super dream sequence outer space world. Like that is heavyweight MMA.
Yeah, there is no application of conventional wisdom when it comes to heavyweights. It just the illusion is there for a little bit, and then it's just all bets are off. You end up with something like Arlovsky versus Brown, where okay, you have an idea how it's going to go, and you're like, no, that's not how I expected it to go at all. Even if you knew what the result was going to be, you didn't think it was going to go quite like that.
Or Arlovsky Bigfoot.
Or
yeah.
Or even like Palele Bigfoot, where like you've seen this shell of Bigfoot who then gets shellacked for a round and then comes back and beats the pants off Palele. Just like,
I really would have loved to see Bob Sapp and Bigfoot go at it. That's like my dream freak show fight right there.
Because you hate Bob Sapp that much.
No,
right?
I love Bob Sapp. I love Bob Sapp.
I think I would love to see that prime Bob Sapp before he learned that he could make more money.
Yeah.
When he was willing to try and win at all costs.
Yeah, like the guy who beat Ernesto Hoost of all people twice. Like that Bob Sapp was fucking frightening. I can see that as a but Jesus, I don't know HGH running loose in the world anymore.
Yeah.
There's yeah.
All right. On that note, Will Brooks, Marcin Held, Eddie.
I am super excited for this fight. I think this is an excellent fight. I like both guys. Marcin Held is a freaking wizard on the ground. I mean, his jiu-jitsu is amazing, and I think what's even more amazing is how he gets the fights to the ground. His wrestling isn't exactly orthodox. It's not what you normally see. It's unconventional. He will roll for leg locks and trip you up and get you to the ground. And he's been hella successful doing it. I mean, you got to give it up to the guy. Like, he finds ways to get the job done. You see this with with really good jiu-jitsu guys is they struggle to get the fight where they want it. I think Nogueira was infamous for his way of getting people to the ground was letting them rock him, and then they follow him to the ground, and then he would submit him. I think that happened with Bob Sapp. While we're talking about Bob Sapp. But Held, man, he comes forward without any regards for being taken down. Like, he doesn't care. He's going to come right at you. He's going to be throwing punches and hoping that you will take him down. And if you don't, then he's going to grab you and roll for some sort of fancy move that is just a smart way to get you to the ground. Even if he has no intention of securing a leg lock on you, he will use that to improve his position, which I find to be severely impressive. Aside from that, his stand-up is pretty basic. He's not going to be throwing anything that anyone hasn't seen before, but he will come at you without the fear of a takedown, and that really counts for something in MMA. Striking is completely different when you can completely disregard being taken down. So he definitely has that edge. Nate Jolly, he actually rocked with a knee, which was impressive. So he can hurt you. Excuse me. He can hurt you on his feet. But let's see, Will Brooks, I mean, current champion, American top team guy, 16-1. Beat Michael Chandler twice in grueling decision. Or first was a grueling decision. Second one finished him in the 4th round TKO. Bit of a slow starter. Like I don't know if he's just a slow starter or he just likes to go at a really relaxed pace to start and knows that he has the cardio to go into the deeper rounds. So he kind of coasts in the beginning, let the other guy tire himself out, and then start putting it on him. Like he did that against Dave Jansen. Jansen came out right out of the gate, throwing a whole bunch of stuff. Brooks just kind of chilled, took it all, and then rounds 3, 4, and 5 just really turned it up on him and showed his superior athleticism. His kickboxing, it's kind of basic, a little bit reliant on his athleticism. He's not really setting things up too much. And same with his defense. He'll get out of the way using his physical talents, which work for him right now. Might catch up to him later, but they're sound enough to get him out of harm's way. He's got a stiff jab. He will throw some fancy kicks here and there, but nothing on a regular basis. I think this bout comes down to, can he stop the unconventional takedown? We saw when he fought Chandler that Chandler was able to hold him down for the first 2 rounds. And if Chandler's going to hold you down, there's a good chance that Held can hold him down. But can Held actually get him to the ground? That's what this comes down to. And can he do it inside of 3 rounds? Because we've seen Held kind of gas towards the end of a fight before. So I'm not sure if he's got that kind of conditioning to be pulling off submissions and fancy takedowns in the 4th and 5th round when they're tired, everyone's sweaty, it's hard to grab a hold of things. So I think if Brooks can manage to thwart any kind of takedown attempts early in the first couple of rounds from Held, then he will be able to take this into the later, deeper water, and I see him eking out the decision here. So,
all right. Vic?
Well, you raised many great points here, and primarily as it relates to Held, who's an interesting fighter because of how a lot of the things that we would rather see in a fighter in terms of being more complete. Like, we don't really see that much with Held. You're talking about a Polish guy who has been fighting out of London Shoot Fighters for the last few years. So, his wrestling is not perhaps the same as most American fighters that we see coming up in a system that's had wrestling in it and has a certain degree of training partners that can help you prepare for another wrestler. You raised a great point about how Held gets fights to the ground. He's not just pulling guard. He's intertwining his legs. He's rolling for something. He's creating some sort of scramble situation to end up in an advantageous position. He's currently 21-3. He's got 1 knockout, 3 TKOs, and 12 submissions. All of them have been just highlight reel worthy. 6 straight wins, and he just beat Patricky Pitbull and Tiger Sarnovsky. That was actually the Sarnovsky fight. I believe was in 2003. So actually, don't take that for 2013. It's probably not that recent. Will Brooks, however, 16-1 as a pro, 5 TKOs, 4 submissions. His only loss is to Saad Awad, who's actually doing a lot better these days. The submissions that have been on his record have been arm bars and rear naked chokes. And I'm not sure if maybe it's something where he's able to grind his opponent down and then be able to implement them, his submission game, because he doesn't seem to go for it as much these days. That's something that he was, I guess, focused on more, or the opportunity presented itself a lot in an easier fashion when he was earlier on in his fight career. Excellent wrestler. He's polished up his boxing a bit, although he is, as Eddie mentioned, reliant on his power and his speed and physical attributes as opposed to technique. It's still working for him for now. I haven't seen him take too much damage. It is possible that will serve him quite well in this bout. Now, the problem is with Held that he has a submission loss on his record to Michael Chandler, who put him to sleep with an arm triangle. And what I don't really figure in this case, I mean, Chandler, I'd like to think probably just has more or better submission training than Brooks, and he's just a different kind of wrestler as far as keeping that heavy pressure on a guy. Not just taking the guy down and then, working shots, to the body and the head and trying to move his positioning. But I don't really see them as being I don't see that what worked for Chandler may not work for Will Brooks in this situation. I think his submission savvy may be compromised here, and Held might be in might force him to not want to go to the ground at all. He might want to very well just keep this standing, use his wrestling defensively to keep things where he wants it, and just trade and put Held away that way. Other than that, he's going to have a lot of problems until it's too late. It's one of those things where Held is known a lot for his leg locks and leg attacks, but he really is able to just snatch submissions anywhere. I mean, it's really wherever he wants it to go once it hits the ground, unless you're dealing with someone who's got everything at a pinpoint level. I don't know if Brooks really has that right now. So I will still favor Brooks as long as it stays standing. Again, we don't have any odds on this. We don't know what they are. But, yeah, I'm certainly favoring Brooks in this bout. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I don't think Held really has what it takes standing, nor will he be able to get the fight where he wants it to be for that to happen.
I gotta say, I'm going Held on this one. Just kind of an inkling in the back of my mind that I think Will Brooks is a little. First, I would say that his fight against Dave Jansen, and I respect Dave Jansen. I think he's kind of got that Emmanuel Newton thing going on, where he's just kind of a weird dude that does weird stuff and makes fights harder on guys than they expect. But that fight raised some real questions for me with Brooks, in that I get the feeling that, and especially just from what I've seen over his career, that he's very willing to fight down to the level of his opponent. Like, even though he is the much better athlete, even though he has the better technique, even though he might be better everywhere, he'll just let a guy hang around with him and pick at him and, give him a lot of opportunities. And it hasn't cost him that much, but you look too, I mean, Chandler is, obviously a great fighter, but like I don't know that and Chandler, it's not to say that Chandler doesn't have a lot of submissions or knockouts, but he's not a quick threat in general. Like, Chandler's the kind of guy who tends to break people down over time, and then get the submission, get the TKO. I don't think Brooks has necessarily faced a lot of guys who have the ability to really put him in danger quickly. And even what we've seen, his loss to Sada Wad, not that should be taken as like a really major question mark for his career, but it did show that, he has the potential to get caught for being lackadaisical. And I think Held's got the kind of offense to catch him. I think if Brooks starts out lazy and is like, I'll let you do your thing, we'll kind of get into the flow of the fight, he's going to find himself fighting off a submission really quickly, and I could see him ending up tapping out to something. And I know he'll be pissed about it too, because I'm writing up an interview with him right now, and he thinks that Held's way of fighting is really cowardly, and he said specifically that he would not have much respect for Held if Held just like dove on one of his legs, wrapped it up, and submitted him.
That's crazy to me. Like, what? Like, how dare him break my leg, you coward?
No, just like he's just like, if you're gonna fight like that, you should be like, you should beat. He basically, like, his whole thing is like, you should beat somebody up before you just like whip off a submission, like,
It makes me wonder if any of these guys have actually read the rules. I'm not sure you understand what you're participating in.
It's a philosophy thing. I get where Brooks is coming from, and I don't think it's one of those things that, like, I don't expect it to affect the way he fights in the cage in terms of, like, the way he approaches Held. I expect he's going to be well prepared and all that. But I do think it'll mean that he will be really, really, really angry if Held just is able to jump on him and grab a limb.
I feel like that's something that a more aggressive fighter would say. Someone with like a Vanderlei Silva style. Like, I can understand that. Like a Phil Baroni. That's like a Phil Baroni statement.
Well, that's Will Brooks' stand too. But I don't know. I got this feeling that Held is going to take this, and I think it's just Will Brooks, like that Dave Jansen fight. He was not dominating that fight early in any sense, and he had Jansen dead to rights in terms of like athletic ability. Like he was way faster, way stronger, way, just way more fluid and coordinated and dynamic. And he got beat up a bit just from like, I'll just, hang around, see what this guy's doing.
You think that
And
was a game plan, though? Take Jansen into the later
I
rounds?
would say that it's a game plan, except that it always seems to be what Will Brooks does.
For sure.
So, I mean, like, I think that's just kind of the way he fights, you know. So I got a sneaking suspicion that Held's gonna pull this one out.
Very possible. I think the odds should be kind of relatively close. Nothing over 300 for Brooks, I would say.
I don't think Brooks is popular enough to be a huge favorite in the odds, frankly. I think that he, I think there are going to be a lot of people who think that Held could submit him potentially, and I don't know. I think they should probably be pretty close. I would expect maybe 200s either way.
Yeah.
Anyway, final fight: Patricio Freire, Daniel Strauss. I believe, Vic, it's your turn.
It might be. I'm not sure.
You lead this one. Go for it.
All right, a fantastic rematch between one of the Pitbull brothers against the formerly dreadlock Daniel Strauss, friend of the cannabis, ATT standout, very, very, very good fighter. Uh, well, let's start off with Strauss, who is, I think, very underappreciated and underrated. 23-6 as a professional, 4 TKOs, 6 submissions. Very, very, very slick with some of his movement. He's deceptive with his boxing, and he's got some tricks up his sleeve. Sometimes he'll utilize a hand trap or two to kind of change the tide when it comes to his striking. His wrestling is also pretty good. His submission defense has proven to be very, very good as well. He's great at closing the distance. He does have a thing when it comes to slowing down a little later on in the fights, and it doesn't seem so much as a cardio thing. I think it might have to do more with his just his pacing. It's like, all right, we're in the 4th round. Let's slow things down a little here. He's probably adapting to the tempo of his opponent if they're slowing down as well. Meanwhile, you got his opponent who's 24-2, 7-fight win streak, and he's just beaten some of the very absolute best that Bellator's had to offer, including Michael Curran, Justin Wilcox, Wilson Hayes, before he jumped to the UFC. He's got losses to Joe Warren and Pat Curran. Those are the only 2 people he's lost to in his entire career. And I don't think either one of these guys, if either one of these guys were in the UFC, they probably would be getting a hell of a lot more respect than what they currently do. I really think that maybe the fact that they've spent such a large chunk of their careers in Bellator may be overshadowing some of the promise that they actually have. So I'm really looking forward to this bout. Patricio is just relentless. He's never out of the fight. You can never count him out at any point. We saw that in that recent fight against Michael, where he just came back out of nowhere and just landed that massive shot when everyone thought he was done after he got rocked. I think his submission game is going to be. I think that Strauss's cardio may play a factor, as well as the fact that he seems to have a safer striking style. He might not take as much damage. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure that Patricio should be the favorite in this bout, but I really would not be surprised if Strauss pulls off the upset on this one. In fact, I'm going to go with Daniel Strauss in this one, probably by decision. I don't think it'll be a boring bout by any means, and we're going to see a little bit of everything. We're going to see clinch work, ground work, standing, everything that's available. These guys are going to throw at each other, and I'm certainly going with Strauss on this. As great as Ferreira is going to be, this will be a big, big feather in his cap.
All right, Eddie.
I could not agree more.
There you go.
I have to agree with everything Vic says. I feel like Strauss has really gotten a lot better recently. I think he has become more patient. I think he has been improving with his counters. he's always been one to rely on his reflexes, his athleticism to get out of the way, to get back into range. But now he's doing that, but also throwing strikes with it, which I really like to see. I mean, that's devastating. Um, you know, he's been known to have mental lapses. He's been known to somewhat. It's almost like he has a mental gas tank, and when it comes to the later rounds, he kind of runs out of mental gas and makes bad mistakes, or just he gets weird, for lack of a better word. But you know, Pitbull, Patricio Pitbull, he his left hook is ridiculous. I mean, he probably has one of the nicest lefts I've ever seen. It's so fierce and tight and comes out of nowhere, and it can put anybody to sleep. Um, he does kind of have the same style every time we see him. I mean, this is the third time these guys have fought, so Strauss knows exactly what he's getting into, whereas Strauss has been changing a little bit each time out. Pitbull's been a little hittable lately. Also, we saw that in the Weichel fight. He almost lost at the end of that first round. Like, he almost was finished, and he's kind of been losing his fights recently up until the point he wins them. And I mean, how long is that going to work for him? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, he's on the ground. He's got the jiu-jitsu to definitely submit Strauss, especially in the later rounds. And he has the firepower to hurt Strauss if Strauss isn't patient and if Strauss is overly open when he does strike. But I have to agree with Vic here. I'm going to have to agree with Vic, and I'm picking Strauss here, although I believe Patricio will be the favorite. I see Strauss getting the win here.
Let me get this straight. I suck so bad you had to put it up on the thing, but you're agreeing with me. What does this mean exactly? I don't know. It seems inconsistent, my friend.
What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case.
What do you mean?
God,
I'm just kidding.
Eddie's coming up with the magic tricks. I love this shit. This is
But
great.
for real, though.
What the fuck is this?
Okay, so you guys are both going with Strauss. Yeah, I mean, Pitbull is in one of those weird places where, because he started his career as like a teenager, I don't know, when he was probably 17, 16, started as a pro. He's been fighting forever now. I mean, he's been fighting since 2004, and he's still very good. He's only 28, but at some point the wheels fall off. Like, nobody stays good that long. I mean, basically you can't expect Pitbull to be good past the age of 30, but he's not past the age of 30 yet, and it's hard to know, like, is he really going to fall off like right now, or is he going to fall off in a year or two? Is this... I do think we are starting to see some major problems where he's losing significant portions of bouts before he's running back and, hitting the home runs. But it also does underscore the fact that he's dangerous in a lot of areas, whereas Strauss is really much more of a guy who, like, has to depend on being consistent and winning all the rounds to win the fight. And he's gotten a lot better. Like, his kickboxing over the last 2 years, over the last year even, has sharpened way up. Like, his kickboxing is way better than it ever used to be. It looks like it's just advancing fight to fight. He isn't the point where he should be hitting his prime, where everything should be starting to click in his career. So I think it is reasonable to expect Strauss to be better than ever this fight. But it is hard to pick against Pitbull right now, just because, like, it's hard to pick against a fighter who is that dangerous as a submission artist and that dangerous as a knockout artist. Whereas we've never consistently seen Strauss as a dangerous fighter anywhere. Even when he's landing the hard shots, he doesn't seem to have a ton of power. Like, he's not the guy that's just going to land that one bomb that'll knock you out. Even against Henry Corrales, who he had really outgunned. Like, that was a late second round submission that he ended up cinching up.
He did drop Coran though in their fight.
He did, like,
counter. Like he moved out of the way, came back with that straight, and did drop him.
yeah.
I think that's his key here. Like if he makes Pitbull lead and counter Pitbull, he could really hurt him here.
Yeah. I do think I gotta kind of pick Strauss too, but I have a lot of trouble counting Pitbull out right now. You know, like that just feels like it might be just barely too soon to start saying like we're gonna see him start to lose these fights that it looks like he's going to lose. Which I don't know. That's not an exact science, but it's a reasonable. It's a small fear. I do expect Pitbull to be maybe. I expect him to start out as a favorite, but I could see the betting line swinging a lot on this one. Depending on if anyone's betting on these fights at all. I mean, Bellator doesn't exactly get a lot of action, but
yeah, you can't even bet on Bellator in Vegas.
Yeah,
not at the casinos.
That's wild.
Well, it's a UFC town, you know. So
yeah, it's true.
I get it.
That's also true.
But yeah.
Anyway.
Well, hypothetically, if Strauss does win, you think they would fight for a fourth time?
Yeah, I think Bellator would make that. I don't think they have any problem running back these fights as many times as they can. And they haven't exactly they're not exactly quite building a wealth of new challengers at these divisions.
Yeah, I mean they're the biggest. They're two of the biggest guys at the top, and even though the tournament structure is done, and that was something that forced a lot of these crazy rematches. I don't know. It seems like it's one of those things that they might stall and not do until they absolutely have to. It seems, but I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that they would have yet another bout at some point.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see. Especially even just to keep Pitbull happy, maybe, because I think he's been pretty vocally unhappy before with Bellator when things have not gone his way.
Yeah.
So I could see it as a way if he loses his title and he starts talking about how he deserves an immediate rematch that they might want to give him one.
Or it might be in his contract. He might have a clause for that. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that pretty much sums up the card. Thoughts on the card, Vic? I know you had some last-minute things you wanted to go over before we close the show.
Yeah, we actually missed this when we were talking about the bout earlier. But Justin Lawrence was originally slated to take on Pat Curran in this bout. That did not happen. Pat Curran got injured, so we got Manuel Sanchez, as we noted. Chris Heatherly was supposed to be on this bout, and he was injured. A broken hand forced him out of this bout, so that's yet another unfortunate thing here that we missed. 2 weeks from now, we've got 146, and that one's going to be headlined by Kato versus Manhoff. A bout that is, it's got some pretty disturbing ethical concerns that it raises. But Brandon Gertz is going to return action against Derek Campos. We got Chidi Njokuani, Ricky Rainey, Bubba Jenkins, and Jordan Parsons. This one might fly under the radar, but it's looking pretty fun. Houston Alexander, if you're interested in him, is fighting Guillermo Viana. And Bubba McDaniels, Julia Budd, and Josh Neer will also be returning on that card. Finally, big ups to, again, Just Roll Podcast. Our good friends Chris Gleason and Roy Billington doing great work. They've only got 2 episodes so far. They've hit a bit of a snag, but they're working on some really, really interesting stuff that's coming down the pipeline. And a personal thank you to Roy, who's helping me out on a little thing here that we'll disclose later on. TheSlothReport.com. Once again, SlothReport.com. My buddy Josh Vogel, great instructor. He's giving out stuff for free now for all you heathens who don't believe that he might have the key for you when you're grappling success. Check it out. $5 a month. Excellent little newsletter with great tips. And finally, St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Every time I'm going to hit you over the head with this shit because guess what? They need it and they need help. They're giving out great things. They're doing great things for children who need it more than anybody else right now. So please drop something in their bucket if you can.
All right. Well, I'll wrap up by promoting myself and you guys and the site because I have no charity in my heart whatsoever. You can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Vic on Twitter at Vic M. Rodriguez, and you can find Eddie on Twitter at The Eddie Mercado. You can find all of us in our various capacities on Bloody Elbow, whatever they may be. And subscribe to MMANation.com for more great analysis and interview content from us, and give this video a like, because that's how we make money and all the other things that keep this show going. So thanks for tuning in.
And subscribe.
Yeah. Subscribe and stay tuned. We'll have a UFC Vivisection, the MMA Prospectus, all our other shows coming up this week. So thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.